daily, so 2 wouldn't even be. Do what?
So only 2 companies
Yes,
bid?
yes, yes.
So then I would recommend getting some clarification
Yeah.
on what they provided and then bringing it back at the next CAL.
Yeah, because at
That's
this.
okay.
Yeah, at this point, yeah, I don't know by this if it's how they're bidding.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like it's apples to apples.
No.
Okay, Kevin?
I'd say we just keep this on the next cow, not put it on a voting, or?
You don't have anything to vote on.
So you get clarification, then come back on the next Cal.
Yep.
Yep. Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thanks, Peggy.
Lincoln Sewage Treatment Plant CSO Solids Removal Project Update. Back again.
All right, the update, 2 things. We are submitting the plans to IEPA for review of the construction permit. The few things have changed over the last couple of months. Our IEPA permit reviewer has left IEPA, so I'm anticipating it to take a bit longer to get the permit reviewed, because now we don't know who's going to be doing it. They're shuffling his work around, but we are going to get that into the agency. Second thing is I have, and I'm not doing it yet, we'll come back after we get through the Union Street thing, but very soon I'm going to come back with the information to get that loan application for the CSO construction project submitted to EPA, which I will get with Mr. Hoblet. We'll have to do all the ordinances and basically the same hoops that we jumped through for the loan for the Union Street. So everything's going to be so super easy because we've already done this once before. But that way we can get everything in line so that we can breeze through when we get ready to do this process again. So all is going along nicely. But I do have all the loan documents ready, but I didn't want to confuse the 2 projects together.
Questions, discussion? Yeah.
Yes. The other was, no.
Microphone.
Glad you're doing that, Chris. The other issue was,
Thank you for what you're doing with that. We'll take your lead on it. But we also wanted to know about the CSO sludge removal project. And is that part of something that he'll take over, or are you going to talk about it first and then?
That actually is not ours. That's a
Okay.
maintenance issue at the plant that we had actually asked to have the sludge removed so that we could do a structural inspection before we actually go out to bid. That will be Anthony.
Okay.
The update on that, we took advantage of Patrick Lee's trucking company having given us access last Thursday to 8 of their trucks, and they even offered their backhoe and a driver. We were able to work as a team to get all of the drying beds completely cleared out in preparation of moving the solid sludge out of the CSO tanks. The rental equipment will be delivered this Friday, and pending weather will start Monday. We've got the rental equipment for the entire week, so the 16th through the 20th we'll be moving the equipment in to get as much sludge as we can get out as possible. That effort has saved the city money on the original quote. We will not need the 4-wheel loader, which was originally a part of the quote. And we got all of the drying beds empty with about 25 loads instead of 50.
We approved this, the mayor and I approved this, so this does not need to be going on the agenda, correct? We just wanted you to have an update. Thank you for both, what you're doing on that.
Don't have any questions for either of them? Okay. Thank you very much. Moving down to solar energy panels RFP. Kevin, you want to talk about it?
I don't even think the RFPs have gone out yet, so.
No, I was trying to get it done with Sean today, but we didn't quite get it finished. So instead of being in a mad rush to piece something together, we'll try to have it to you before the next meeting.
Soon as I get notification that the RFPs have gone out and they come back in, then we can put it on a cow for opening at a council meeting.
Tracy?
Does the RFPs, are they going to include different terms? Because I know that the original was 25 years. I'm not in favor of a 25-year contract with them personally. I'd like to see something smaller than that.
Kevin?
So I can get with Sean tomorrow, and we're drawing up the RFP. We can just make term a question mark so that each company puts in their own term. Does that satisfy?
Yeah, I think that'd be fine.
And buyout, you had a question on buyout. Would you like that as part of the?
Yeah, since the individuals that gave us the presentation mentioned the buyout, I think that's something we should ask everybody.
Okay, so I'll get with Sean tomorrow and make sure term and buyout is both question marked as part of the RFP.
Perfect. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Any other questions, discussion on that? Okay. Legalized marijuana dispensary, city council endorsement resolution. Kevin, Tracy?
So I'm assuming everybody got the email from John on his writing of the resolution, so that we got something to look at before we vote next week, but I would like this on the agenda for next week.
Tracy?
I was just going to say that I think that we've talked about this in great length at multiple meetings, and I don't know that there's any unanswered questions that anybody has at this point that would sway them one way or another. And so I think we just need to put it on the agenda and vote on it.
Is this on the, Steve?
So there was a meeting on Wednesday last week. Can any of the, was that?
Was that with the county?
Correct, and I think we had a couple of aldermen attend that. Can you guys describe what transpired?
Basically, the county is considering the same thing. I got an email from Mr. Hepler yesterday and one again today that they would be bringing it off the floor for their approval. For people that are questioning it, the county does own properties inside the city limits. So they have the option also of passing the same thing and allowing it inside the city limits here, and it would be a county approval. So basically, that's what the meeting was about, was trying to get a joint conversation going on allowing this, revenue sources. Both law enforcement agencies could use some revenue source. And the email I got today was they were going to bring it up off the floor as a possible vote at their county meeting.
Kathy Schmidt and then Steve?
So, then does the county have preeminence over the city in that case?
Mr. Howlett?
Well, in regards to county, I mean, if they pass their own ordinances that allow it, then they're perfectly within their purview to do as such, just like we're within the purview to pass our own ordinances to allow it within the city limits. If you're looking to see if there's going to be a conflict issue, if the city passes an ordinance, like say, we're not going to allow, a dispensary, in the city, and then the county passes an ordinance saying, well, we're going to put it on our property in the city. Well, then we do have a bit of a conundrum, then, don't we?
We do.
Yes. So I'll look into that and get back with you, Ms. Schmidt. Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Steve?
To not to play speaking on behalf of somebody else, but I had heard some of the conversation that took place, and maybe you or Ron can address it, is a question was asked about Police of Chief Adams and his level of, I don't want to say level necessarily, but is he in support of recreational in the city, dispensary in the city. And I had heard that the city had said he is in support of it, which in all the discussions, I have not heard him in support of it necessarily, in the sense that he had said there might be additional costs, and you'd have to pay, for those costs, or try to come up with those costs somehow. So I'm not sure exactly what the conversations were, and if that was an actual question asked of our city representatives, and if you guys were speaking on behalf of our chief of police.
Kevin?
The conversation, as I remember it, was what Mr. Adams had mentioned at the previous conversations here, is marijuana is already here. They're going to have to deal with it no matter what. So if it's sold somewhere else, they're going to bring it back to Lincoln. And Chief can correct me if I'm wrong, but the conversation was, either way, they have to deal with it, whether we allow it or not allow it. And possibly the revenue source would help with the funds to help him deal with it. I had a conversation with the sheriff the other day, asked the exact same question, and he nearly gave the exact same answer Paul did, was, it's here already.
That's different than being in support of it. And so
I don't remember anybody saying they were in support of it. It was, they have to deal with it anyway.
Because I don't know that the city alderman should speak on behalf of chief by saying he is in support of bringing in legalized marijuana dispensaries into the city, because I didn't get that feeling from him. And so, I mean, if that's not the case, then I'm glad you guys didn't say that he is in support of it. And we can look at the minutes and see what they have in their meeting if necessary.
Mr. Hoblet?
Yes, in regards to this particular conversation, I would just like to add, I believe Mr. Adams spoke in regards to consequences and realities moving forward. I don't think he ever made mention of any type of support. As let's just say personally, like say a city attorney, if somebody asked me for my opinion, I'd be somewhat hesitant to, that's non-legal in essence, I'd be somewhat hesitant to give it, because I am not an elected official here. You guys are, okay? You could make an interpretation that I'd be trying to sway you with my opinion, which would be improper, because I was not elected by the people of the city to represent them and to vote. So I will give legal opinions, just as Mr. Adams gives you essentially realities of what might transpire. But I think as appointed officials, we're a little bit more hesitant to essentially say whether or not we will support or not support something. Now, of course, Mr. Adams, it's a free country. You could say if you support it or not, but I'm just saying from my perspective how that should operate. Thanks.
Mr. Keller?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I would just like to confirm, even though that Chief Adams' name did come up, I don't know if your ears were burning. No, myself, Alderman Bateman, who was there, or our city administrator, nobody said that Chief Adams was in support of that. So wherever you heard that information, it is vastly incorrect.
Thank you. That's why I brought it up, and I wanted to make sure it going first knowledge.
Mr. Bateman, then Beth?
So as I was saying earlier, I had the same conversation with the sheriff, and he basically nearly verbatim said what Paul said in the meeting last week, that, if it's already here, they're going to have to deal with it no matter what. The Sheriff's Association tried to get the state not to legalize it. Now they're on the other side of the fence of, okay, it's legalized, so now how are we going to deal with it? And that's basically the answer, nearly identical, that Paul gave, that if it's already here and they already have to deal with it, you might as well figure out how to pay for those extra costs, which the revenue stream would do. I just want to say, it's been reported that I'm pushing for this or whatever. I I've never used it in my life, wouldn't know what the effects are, only in Cheech and Chong movies or whatever you want to, that's all I know. So my feeling sitting here is, and I've said this to numerous people, and I've had numerous phone calls, none of which want to come forward. Paul is the only one. I want to thank him graciously for constantly contacting me and letting me know. He's talked to people. There are people that just don't want their name out there, that they're users for whatever reason. It's already here, okay? So the thing I'm trying to say is, I wasn't elected to push my values onto people. I was elected to govern. And if we have a chance to govern this and control where it goes, what tax dollars we collect, what fees we put on it, just like we did gaming and just like what we did alcohol, that's what I was elected to do, and that's where I feel passing it gives us that opportunity to at least have some kind of control or voice in where it goes, how many goes in, where the money goes that is collected. It's just a number of reasons for me. I've told people out loud, I would, if it passes, I would probably step into the place for the ribbon cutting and never look back ever again. I just don't have any need or urge to do it, but I've been contacted by hundreds of people that use it recreationally, not hooked on it. And I meant to bring something to pass out tonight from the CDC disease control of deaths. They're always a year behind. I have the current list for 2017, and marijuana is 0. And there's an asterisk next to it, and it says 0 for every year recorded. So, again, governing it is where I stand. I'm not pushing it. I'm not advocating for it. This is one of the projects that was handed to me or asked to contact the individual by the mayor and the administrator. That's the only way I got involved in this thing. And so I brought it forward, and I'm trying to answer the question as best I can. But in the research I've done, I feel the city should take the step to allow it and then decide how we're going to pay for the services that may be needed later.
Beth?
Yes, I'll keep this brief. I just wanted to say I, too, was at the Logan County Planning and Zoning Committee last Wednesday, and they talked about that the county is at the 3.5% level, that they will possibly have a potential tax where we have a 3% coming in. But the chairperson had first talked about possibly doing a collaboration between the city and the county, and then he had mentioned a couple of the properties that were within the city that are actually owned by the county. So I think that's where some of that came in. But I don't think, well, they didn't get any kind of nomination for a vote. So I don't know if that's what they're going to do. Alderman Bateman tomorrow night, we're going to try to bring this forward.
Yeah, the county has the option, I'm assuming we have the same option, to bring something off the floor to be voted on. And since the timeline was the committee, and then they have a workshop and then a voting session, that they would bring it off the floor at the workshop and decide whether, if it gets a second in discussion, then they would vote on it at the voting session. They're under the same timeline we are. Everything I've shown, and John has put that in the ordinances, the taxing part of this, we have till October 1st.
Sam?
I just wanted to touch on what Kevin had mentioned. He brought up some good points. And I want to talk about why we were elected. I thought we were we're here to represent the people in our wards and the people of Lincoln. I just wanted just to kind of point out, there's a poll online on like Lincoln Herald News, I believe. So there's some results there. I know it's not indicative of the entire city of Lincoln, but I mean, if you're voice your opinions, get on there and vote. That's all I just really wanted to say.
To touch on what Mr. Downs said, I looked at it this morning, and as of this morning, it was 78% in favor of allowing a dispensary.
So that being said, let's place this on the regular agenda for next week to vote on. Moving down to the next item, we have the legalized marijuana dispensary 3% tax ordinance.
Same thing. Put it on the regular agenda.
We'll place that on the regular agenda.
Do you have one question?
Yes, Mr. Keller.
Just a clarification, I guess this is probably for our city attorney. I know the state has, I don't think it's in the statute, but they have allocated where they would like the sales tax revenue to go once it's legalized, a certain percentage to public education, a certain percentage to law enforcement, a certain percentage to mental health services. Is there anything in the statute which dictates or stipulates that the 3% that we would raise would have to or not have to go to anything in particular?
Mr. Keller, I'm not, from my research when I was doing this, is essentially the structure in regards to the language of how that should be phrased in our ordinance and how it should be inserted into our city code. Okay, my research didn't encompass as to where that money would go to. I maybe I thought I left that for our treasurer, but I could look into that and speak with the treasurer, unless you happen to know, sir, off the top of your head at this moment.
I do not know off the top of my head. My understanding from the parts that I have read is that the state tax would be allocated in that way. But that, it doesn't seem to me, at least on a preliminary reading of it, that dictates that for the municipal tax. But I would want to get together with you and
Right. Understood.
your expertise on reading the finer details of that.
The statute, yes, very much. Okay, very good.
Thank you, both of you.
Place that on the regular agenda. Okay. Update on Fish Street Road, Beth?
Yes, we're chugging along. So it's coming along. We had a meeting today, and we'll have another one on Thursday with another property owner, so things are moving along.
How many yet still have to sign?
Oh, we still have a few, but we're doing verbal agreements. I can't tell you just exactly because it's from when they get them to sign the papers that it's.
Well, I know we're moving along, but I'm just kind of wondering, have we had any more signs since we last spoke?
Yes, we have. We have.
Schmidt?
This is Kappelman. I have a question about, is there anyone that we sent a letter out to that we were not getting in contact with that has still not contacted us back?
Yes, and I can talk further about that later, but yes, we have had someone who did sign the green, receipt. It came back, but no other contact.
Okay.
Mr. Welch?
So to follow up on Steve's question, though, not taking into consideration people that we've talked with verbally, the verbal agreements aren't binding until they get signed, correct? So do you know roughly, well, not roughly, exactly, how many unsigned parcels are there? Because I know at one point there was 15 or 17, and I think we're just trying to loosely gauge where we're at with this.
Yes, we've narrowed that down, but, once they sign, then the paperwork has to go to IDOT, and then IDOT works on the paperwork, then sends it back to our engineering firm. The engineering firm sends it to us, then we go get the, goes through the county and gets all that. So it's wherever they're at. I think we've probably narrowed down 3 since the last time we spoke. But
3 more?
3 more, but there's more in the works, but they're all in different various stages, so.
If we were to, and I know we got another meeting Thursday with one of the bigger ones, I think, but if we were to gauge how long we think this is going to take, how many people are going to exceed the 60-day eminent domain letters that went out? Could you guesstimate?
Boy,
I'm sorry to put you on the spot. I'm just
Right,
trying to get a feel for it.
we might know more. I'd rather talk about some of this in executive session because it is involving some personal stuff with some individuals.
Okay.
So I don't want to not tell the public, but yet I think some of this stuff is very pertinent to not discuss it yet.
Yeah, the personal details, I agree with that. I'm just trying to just get very vague information. So, but that's okay. I appreciate that. Thank you.
We might know more after Thursday.
Yep.
Kevin, did you have your hand up?
Well, I guess I'm still with Steve and Tracy. My question is, I don't care where they at in the process, whether it goes to state, IDOT, or wherever. How many people, since we started this conversation, let's just say since May 1, since half of this council was sworn in, how many people have actually signed the documents and now it's on to the next phase?
Like I said, this is very difficult, especially since the council voted to take the bike path out. We've changed a few configurations, new designs going into place. I'll probably have an answer for you more next week than I would for now. This is it's just variable. It's hard to explain.
Is it, I'm sorry, Kathy. Is it possible going forward, I know that you've got a million things you're doing for the city, and I thank you for that, but is it possible to get a weekly, like Friday before you leave, just shoot the council a status update on this project? That way we don't have to keep asking you these questions and...
Sure. Yeah, I mean, yes, I will be glad to do that. Sometimes it's like Friday afternoon, I get a bunch of them come through, so the tally changes.
And that's okay.
But
Point in time
I'll
is
try to
okay.
keep a column of what status we're in. Maybe that will help.
Perfect.
Would that help you?
I don't even need names. I would just like, we have 10 unsigned properties, and then maybe the next week say 2 signed, we're down to 8. Just a number would greatly help me.
Okay. And then the other thing I want to update is we really need to work on the money aspect of this. It doesn't matter how many we've got signed. We've got temporary easements coming up. We've got some other things that we need to deal with.
Kathy Schmidt?
So my question, Mrs. Cavalman, is, once they've signed, and you said it has to go through all those, do they sign it again? That's it, right? So once they've signed, and that's kind of really where my question is, once they've signed, not regardless. I thought maybe they had to sign it again, that's why I asked.
I'd say after we've issued the check, that would be, wouldn't you say that's kind of the official, final, we've issued the check? Yes, they take the deed right after that, after we give them a check. We send a check to the engineer.
Further questions, discussion? Okay. Committee structure? Kevin?
No clue. Nobody wants to talk about it. I just kind of just leaving it out there every month. How's that for an answer?
Tracy?
No offense to Mr. Bateman, but I think we beat this horse to death. And I think the fact that, I mean, we can certainly vote on it, but the problem is we never reached an agreement on what to vote on. And so I personally think that we're doing well with the committees that are formed as the issues that we face are coming at us. I think we've got some good results out of those committees. I know I've sat with Mr. Downs on Fifth Street, and Kathy and I have sat on the Comcast agreement, and Catherine, I'm sorry. So I like the way we're doing things now. I think it's an improvement from where we've been, and I'd personally like to see this particular topic die.
Mr. Bateman?
I don't ever want to see it die, but, you know, I know what battles I can win and what battles I can't and what battles I'd like to fight. But that being said, since I was on the council, been sworn in, I can say there has been a change. I did show up at Mrs. Cavalman's office on several occasions coming into town, and I contacted her via email or text message or phone conversation, asking for things to do to help take some of the workload off of her, some of the smaller things. Proof of that is the marijuana, the solar projects, and I know the mayor has me on the sewer plant along with Mr. Welch. If things keep moving in that direction, I agree. It seems to be working. I still like committee structure. Mr. Harnicke's not here, but the regional planning meeting that happened after zoning, we talked about the 3 months of conversation of changing zoning ordinances for mobile homes and motor homes and whatever out in the county, and he thought that was really good work, and I tapped him on the shoulder, and I said, that's because it came from a committee. So I like the way things are going. I'm open to any project you want to give me. I'm assuming other aldermen are the same, and as long as we keep that moving forward, I'm willing to accept that.
Mr. Rounds?
I just wanted to touch on what Mr. Welch had said. I think that that the committee structure kind of was brought up to facilitate better communication between us, and things have gotten way better, I feel, since I've been here. With that being said, I don't know if it should die. Like, things are going good, but I don't know if it can't be better. Things are improving, but I mean, I think we should kind of gauge how we're doing and maybe look back at this in another 6 months or so, is my thoughts on it. So.
Well, I think that, maybe I should clarify. When I said I'd like to see it die, I meant I'd like to not see it pop up on an agenda in the near future.
Okay,
I do agree that we can constantly reevaluate ourselves and get better on how we do things.
Yeah.
And I think we've done that. We've made great strides since the council's had a turnover, I think. And that's not to say that the former aldermen weren't willing to entertain the idea. I'm just saying I think that the changes that have been wrought before this council have been well received and are working. That being said, I do think that we can improve our transparency with the community and publish these committees as they pop up on the city website and which aldermen have been assigned to them. Because there are individuals that like to reach out and ask questions about the topics that we face and we're dealing with, and I think that would help them.
Kevin?
So my last comment is going to be this, which I brought it up the last cow. To me, the example where a committee structure would work would be, first I want to say, not everything needs to be a committee. There's small things that can be hashed out in a cow and can be voted on. But to me, coming from the form of government I came from and sitting in the back of the room for 3 years, Fifth Street Road would have, in my opinion, we would have been a lot further down the road and a lot more finished with the project, if not at least in construction phase, if we had a committee that talked about it monthly or quarterly or something, whether it be 3 or 4 aldermen got together and let's face it, I know for a fact we went months and almost a year. There was the joint meeting at the police station about Fifth Street Road, and it was never discussed again in this chambers. It was discussed across the street, but it was never discussed again in this chambers. It just got brushed under the rug or thrown in the lap of the administrator who has enormous job duty listings and just laid there. If it would have been handed, if a committee would have been formed on a project that size, I think there would have been constant communication. We would have had answers to questions that were brought up, if not at least found out those answers. Those are the kind of things I feel that committees should be formed, and it should be more than just 2 aldermen because of the Open Meetings Act. If we have to pay aldermen to do something, I don't think we would be where we're at now on Fifth Street if we would have had a committee from the very beginning.
Steve and then Catherine.
So I'm not for sure what year it was we left the committee structure. And I think what year?
12, probably.
2012. And so how long has this Fifth Street project been going on? 20-some years. And so during the inception of it, we had committees.
Was Fifth Street talked about, though?
I don't know. But I mean, heck, you had a perfect opportunity,
years.
for 13 years to take care of it. And so there's no guarantee by having committees that's going to happen unless you have somebody pushing for it. And right now, we're underneath the gun, and we're pushing for it even without a committee, right? So committee's not the answer to fix that problem, because they had 13 years of having committees, which not much was accomplished, it sounds like.
Catherine, then Chuck.
I have a question about, like, when Mr. Parrott asked you both what happened at the meeting with the county, and Tracy and I met with the Comcast group, and there have been others. Shouldn't we report on that to each other? What, I mean, because you wouldn't have said anything if he hadn't asked, and there's nothing secret about it, correct? I mean, it's open. So I would think that all of us we can't get together as a group and talk, which to me is the biggest problem with not having a committee. It's just two of us that can talk about something, so we really need to report on what we do in our times. Don't you all agree? Yes. So we know what's going on.
Thank you, Mayor. Having been here when we had committees and then didn't have them, and now starting to at least have them again, I think they are a good idea, and they do serve very useful purposes. As far as Fifth Street Road project is concerned, whether you had committees or didn't have committees or had subcommittees or however you wanted to do it, there wasn't any money to do this. So the reason this languished as it did was, in my opinion, it was overplanned at the plans for it were too ambitious 20 plus years ago when they were drawn up, and there never has been during that time money to pay for that because there were so many other things. There have been a couple of recessions in there where we were borrowing from one fund to another to pay our sewer loans and short-term loans, things of that sort, to be able to make payments on those things. So the committees, it wasn't because the committees we had weren't doing their job. They weren't going to produce money out of nowhere, and that's been the problem with this project, and it remains a problem with this project because that's a significant amount of money that if you're going to do this, you're going to have to come up with.
Kathy Horn.
Well, to go back to what Kathy had said, if you're on, like you and Tracy were on one thing, and just call Mrs. Bateman and have it put on the agenda that you need to talk about it to everybody.
Ron and then Kevin.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, to what you said, I think your point is well taken. The city administrator did actually send an email to the entire council following that meeting with the county board. This is dated Thursday, so she did let the entire council know what happened at that meeting. But that's not to say that your point isn't well taken, and I think we all feel we need to be more informed so we are apprised of what's happening with the city, because that is our job.
Kevin.
So, as much as I respect Mr. Conzo, and I know I respect everything you say and we talk about, my point is, it had nothing to do with the money. We still don't have the money. All we've been talking about for years is properties, getting properties signed for, getting properties paid for. To me, the biggest problem this city had was paying people for properties, not even knowing if you're going to build the project. You could have had signed documents that said, if this project goes under construction, this is what you'll be paid for your property. Now, if this project goes belly up, we own properties we don't even need. That's right. There was all kinds of things that went wrong in this thing. It didn't matter whether we had the money. To me, as Steve said, we're up against the gun. Yep, you're right. We're up against the gun again. We're up against the gun on the sewer mandate. We're up against the gun on Fifth Street. This council constantly stands against the wall with a firing squad at them because we didn't start something back in the past to work toward a resolution. I've talked to several aldermen that the whole sewer mandate thing, they could have raised the rate of a sewer bill by a nickel 20 years ago, and we could pay cash for this thing. We wouldn't have to. You have to have forward thought and forward vision of projects that are coming down the road. And to me, like I said, not everything needs to be in a committee, but certain projects need that roundtable discussion of getting things working and moving forward. You can't just rely on the administrator for everything, and then when you get push come to shove, you got to bring in two aldermen to try to get people to sign paperwork. We shouldn't even be having this conversation. The Fifth Street Road project at the county was handled in a committee. We all know we've been waiting for a long time to get an answer, and finally, we put the gun to the head of the city and said, we're moving. And that was just before I left the county board. I mean, it was, that project's going forward. So that's what I'm getting at is committees, bigger projects need more discussion and more involvement by more people.
I don't think the pressure from the county is what forced the city to take action on this project. I think what forced the city to take action was the fact that previous administrations and councils made the conscious decision to then take out loans from the federal government and secure funding, and as a result, we are now obligated to either pay that back or move forward. So another piece that hasn't been talked about, I don't disagree or agree that a committee could have handled it better, but what a committee can't address is that this council rolls over every 2 years. We get a new mayor possibly every 4 years. Clerk, treasurer, the dynamics of the people you can't control. And so it wasn't a priority for them. And that's fine, just like certain things aren't a priority for us. But we're now faced with an issue that, we could just shut it down and pay back $800,000 and still try to find another $1 million to do the project. That doesn't seem like a very wise decision to me. So now we have to move forward and figure out how to make this work. But again, I don't know, and I don't think anybody here knows the true answer, whether a committee could fix that problem or not. Because you're still going to be faced as a committee with the same challenges that Mr. Downs and myself and Ms. Cavalman and the mayor and everybody that's currently working on this. I think Mrs. Horn sat in on some meetings, Catherine has, Ms. Schmidt. I think we are all faced with the same challenges a committee would. And I think we've made the best decisions we could, but we are where we are.
All right, let's move forward from that topic and go to announcements. Do we have anyone that has any announcements? I've got one first that was sent to me, and this is from the Illinois Association of Water Pollution Control Operators. It just states that the City of Lincoln Wastewater Facility has been nominated for an award for the best operated wastewater treatment works to be presented by the Illinois Association of Water Pollution Control Operators during their annual conference on April 20th through the 22nd of 2020. This facility is one of 5 that was nominated from all of the Group 2 facilities considered statewide. Chillicothe, City of Lincoln, Village of Carroll Stream, City of Carbondale, and City of Collinsville. So they will receive additional information in March, and then it will be awarded in April. So congratulations to all the guys out there.
Thank you.
That deserves an applause.
Do we have other announcements? Tracy?
Thank you, Mayor. I know Mr. Walt Landers sent out an email to the council today or yesterday regarding the landscape waste facility. I would strongly encourage everybody to take a trip out there, have him give you a tour. I'm sure he would be, as far as he could take you, let the public go in and talk to them about some of the issues that we're facing out there. It's quite interesting what they're dealing with out there, and I think me going out there today kind of opened my eyes to the requests that he brought forward to us a while back about rates and why he's asking for the things that he is. So I would just say take 30 minutes. I think that's what I spent with Walt today, 30 minutes, and go look for yourself.
Beth?
I just want to know what kind of clothing should we wear out there? I mean, as far as shoes, boots, or what?
I can give you a ride in the vehicle.
Oh, okay, all right, thank you. Yes.
Now, you need some high heel boots and rubber to come to see my plant.
Thank you. The one thing I wanted to mention too, and you haven't said anything yet about upcoming meetings, I inadvertently left off next week's regular city council meeting, so please come. It's 7 o'clock next week, next Monday.
Kevin and Ron?
I suggest that everybody take a trip to the sewage treatment plant. I spent most of the morning out there, and it is very interesting. You'll find yourself wanting to take some pictures of some really weird things. like the drying fields and the tomatoes growing up out of them, and you wonder how they traveled from wherever all the way out there and they grow tomatoes in that area. That was quite weird, and it happens quite often, I guess. So it is an interesting facility, and I have to say, when it comes to the equipment and stuff, they keep it in immaculate shape. Everything is cleaned, pressure washed. I mean, you have to realize where you're standing, and it is very impressive.
So those quirky traits may help you win this award when they come visit?
In all seriousness, if y'all can imagine what we deal with, everybody's, quite literally. For the state to nominate us as of what, 5?
5.
You know, no matter what state it is, where I'm from, down south, something like that in the wastewater business is phenomenal. You guys owe it to yourselves to go out there and see what them guys do. I mean, you will forget it's a wastewater plant. Now, next week, you're going to remember what's a wastewater plant. You need to go ahead and go this week before we get that sludge out. So.
Mr. Keller.
Thank you, Mayor. This has been announced before. I'm sure it'll be announced again before it happens, but I've been asked to pass along again that we are trying to break the world's record for the largest gathering of people dressed as Abraham Lincoln on September 21st. Go visit the Logan County Tourism website, but again, the details are the 21st of September at the courthouse. 8 to 2 is the registration period, and the event starts at 3. I don't know if there's anything else I need to add to that, but you can go look at the requirements of what you need to dress like, again, on the tourism website.
Kevin?
I'll challenge our mayor and Mr. Welch and Bob and Wes and Paul, because I found out some information the other day that's quite disturbing to me. One of the requirements is you can't have a mustache. And it sounds weird, but I have never ever shaved my lips, so I'm going to have to do that for the first time in 55 years. And because I plan on doing that, it will grow back. But you individuals, if you want to stand on the courthouse lawn, I want to let you know you have to shave your upper lip.
I only grew mine for hockey, so I'll be fine.
Mr. Landers.
Yeah, if anybody reads the news or is on Facebook or anything, they realize that the railroad crossing on 121 going south towards Mount Pulaski is closed and probably will be closed the rest of the week. The reason I mention that is starting Monday, the crossing at Route 10 going east towards Clinton will be closed for next week to be rebuilt. And then the following week on the 23rd, North Kickapoo Street will get done. So there's been a lot of voiced opinions about the North Kickapoo Street Railroad crossing, so that work's going to be completed, not next week, but the week after that. And that crossing will also be closed down for the week to get the work done. There's going to be some inconvenience, but there's never any improvement without some inconvenience. So everybody just, if everybody just take note of that and take appropriate action and use the detours and things, and hopefully everything will go well, then we'll get those crossings taken care of, which they are in pretty bad shape. So there'll be a lot of happy people once it's done, I'm sure.
Very good. Mr. Keller?
Yeah, I forgot to add to my earlier announcement. Kevin's comment made me think about it. You can buy your beard, your mustacheless beard, and your hat at the Lincoln Heritage Museum. So if that's where you, if you're, the suit is probably easy to get, just a black outfit, white shirt, a bow tie, vest, but the beard and the hat sometimes harder to come by, but you can get it at the Lincoln Heritage Museum.
Do you have any other announcements? Mr. Welch?
Make a motion that we go into executive session under 2C1 personnel and 2C11 possible or potential litigation.
Second.
Mr. Welch made the motion. Mr. Keller seconded. Roll call, please.
Mr. Keller?
Yes.
Mrs. Horn?
Yes.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Mrs. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Welch?
Yes.
Mr. Parrott?
Yes.
Mr. Downs?
Yes.
At 8:24 p.m. We'll go into executive session. There may or may not be future city business. Thank you.